Let's do this in reverse. What are the fallacies that people use to supposedly prove that there is a God?
Well, probably one of the most common ones is this God of the gaps argument. You scientists can't explain X. Therefore, X must not have a natural explanation. Ergo, there must be a supernatural explanation.
What's an example?
Oh, so say the intelligent design people's favorite example of the bacterial flagellum. It's this incredibly complex biomolecular motor with like a couple dozen proteins that all have to be in place in order for it to work. If they weren't there, it wouldn't work at all. So how do you get a stepwise Darwinian explanation for that? You guys don't have a good explanation for it, therefore we think an intelligent designer actually made it all in one swoop in a little workshop somewhere.
So that means that the God was there in that gap to make that.
So that's a gap, you guys can't explain it. And there's lots of examples, the eye or blood clotting, whatever, there's lots of examples. The fallacy with that is that if you hook your faith to that particular scientific argument, what's going to happen to your religious faith when science fills in the gap? Because it does. So even in the great Sir Isaac Newton's greatest work, the Principia Mathematica, toward the end, he talks about the amazing problem of the planetary planes. The planets are all on a single plane, they're all going in the same direction, and most of them are revolving in the same direction. There's no way gravity can explain that, he concluded, and therefore that's the handiwork of God. Well, no one makes that argument anymore. Why not? Because now science has a perfectly good explanation for how the solar system was formed out of this condensing cloud of interstellar gas, which centrifugal force spins in the same direction.
And it's not so perfect.
And it's not so perfect. And so, okay, that gap has now been filled. Okay, so ultimately, all of these arguments fall into that category. You can't explain X, therefore that's where God is. Well, what are you going to do when X is explained? Boop, God is gone. What place then for God when the gap is closed?
Good. So that's God of the gaps.
God of the gaps, right.
What other fallacies are there?
What were my other...
Just so, either ors?
Oh, so another big one is that the either-or fallacy, that here's a problem in nature, evolution can't explain it, therefore intelligent design explains it, or creationism explains it. Well, it's possible that evolution is wrong. The theory could be flawed in some deep way, and therefore theory A is wrong. But theory A being wrong doesn't make theory B right. Theory B has to stand on its own, regardless of theory A. And so intelligent design theorists and creationists have to have positive evidence in support of their theory, not just negative evidence against the theory of evolution.
So the fallacy comes from the original formulation of the question of saying it's one way or the other, and this is the way the world is. And so once you form the question that way, then you're in the fallacy.
That's right, already.
From the beginning.
I mean, it could be that theories C, D, and E are the right ones, or some modification of evolutionary theory. And the theory has been modified. People talk about the evolutionary theory like there's only one, and it's Darwin's. Well, Darwin has been modified considerably, particularly over the last half century or so, with the rise of the study of genomics, and clearly there's other things going on, particularly at the bacterial level, that are not explained by Darwin's traditional theory, and that we've had these other theories. So when you say the theory of evolution is wrong, well, wait, which one? So already that's a deep fallacy. Okay. I think it also related to these is this sort of argument from personal incredulity. I think this is a deep one that we all have. I personally can't think of how this could have come about in some natural way or by the accepted way. Therefore, there must be some other explanation. Maybe you are just not smart enough, or maybe you have just not thought of it and haven't done your homework enough. I see this in my own work with people like, I think that the pyramids must have been built by aliens or some lost race of Atlanteans or something like that, because those idiot Egyptians couldn't have done that. Look how amazing those structures are. Well, that's just personal incredulity. The fact that you can't think of how the Egyptians did it doesn't mean the Egyptians didn't do it. That's the problem with that argument.
How about some people talk about language arguments, that the way human beings just use the word God or supernatural just put us in a language trap that is self-created by our own language experiences.
Yeah, I go so far as to say is that there's no such thing as the supernatural and the paranormal. There's just the natural, the normal, and stuff we can't explain yet through natural, normal forces and laws of nature. The reason I say that is because attributing something to a supernatural or paranormal entity or being or force or whatever doesn't explain anything. It's just saying, and then a miracle happened. Well, but wait, how did it happen? If you say, well, and then God did a miracle. Wait, don't you want to know how she did it? What forces God used? And once you go down that road, you're back doing science. I mean, when the creationists talk about the bacterial flagellum and his 24 proteins and the intelligent designer put them all together, how did the intelligent designer do it? Don't you want to know? Did it use the forces of electromagnetism to bring those proteins together? Did he use gravity? Was there some weak nuclear force? What forces did God use or intelligent designer use? And once you go down that road, you're just back doing science again. So just leave God and the supernatural out of it and just look for natural forces.
What other fallacies that people that you've come across use in their methodologies or their thinking?
So additional fallacies I find with these kinds of arguments, what I call Hume's maxim, or what's more likely, the miracle or the description of the miracle being a very human biased process. Hume said, when I hear a story about a dead person coming back to life, I think, well, what's more likely, that a dead person actually came back to life, or the person who thinks he saw that happen was biased in his thinking or misperceived or so on. We have a vast experience with humans being deceitful or self-deceitful and misperceiving the world, and we have no experience of dead people coming back to life, so that's more likely. Excuse me. Another one is the known and the unknown. That is, before we say, look, we know enough about this particular subject to conclusively know that it was a miraculous thing or there's a supernatural explanation, there's so much we don't know about the world, and that I think it's better to be modest and say, let's just leave that open in the level of sort of we don't know yet, rather than conclude that there is no natural explanation.
What about the burden of proof? In American justice, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty.
From the scientific point of view, the burden of proof is on the claimant. The person making the positive claim has to present evidence in favor of the claim. So an intelligent design theorist that says, I believe that an intelligent designer created whatever, the bacterial flagellum, say, all right, what's your evidence for that? It's not enough to just say, because you guys can't explain it, you evolutionists. That's not evidence in favor of your position. The burden of proof is on you to provide evidence and try to convince us, the skeptics. So science is naturally skeptical. That's the default position. Now, talk me out of my skepticism.
Well, the theologians may look at it in exactly the opposite way. They would say that the natural feeling about the world is that there is a God and there is a supernatural, and this has been human experience for thousands of years. And then in the last 500 years, arguably, that science has come along to take a more limited view, or an accurate view, but a more limited view of reality. So the burden is upon you to say what we have always assumed to be the case is not the case.
I actually think this is a reasonable argument to make, but that there is a very interesting psychological explanation that humans by nature tend to see design in things. And we were designed by evolution to do that. Because there is design. It's functional adaptation, which is how evolution works. There was natural selection, the force of natural selection operating to create functional adaptations for survival in the natural environment. So I am willing to concede the point that there is design in nature. And evolution was the bottom-up designer, not a top-down designer from God. Either way, I think we evolved to find design in nature. It's there. It is there. So the natural inclination is to say and conclude that there is design. And because we have a big brain and we tend to design things ourselves, we think there must be a higher designer than us. The counterintuitive thing is the actual explanation that evolution did it.